Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most pivotal battles in history, the Battle of Midway. A fierce clash in the Pacific that changed the course of World War II and solidified the bravery and cunning of those who fought. If you're passionate about history, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a story. Ready to explore the Pacific Showdown? Let's go. By June of 1942, World War II had already reached its second year, and the Pacific theater was in full swing. The Japanese Empire, having conquered vast swaths of the Pacific, now had their eyes on a crucial target, Midway Atoll, a small but strategically vital island halfway between Asia and North America. This would be the battleground where the fate of the Pacific War would be decided. But, what the Japanese didn't know was that the Americans had already cracked their code. Just 6 months before, Japan had launched a devastating surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, which crippled the U.S. Navy. But instead of breaking American resolve, it awakened a sleeping giant. Now, the U.S. had the chance to strike back, and Midway was the perfect opportunity. Behind the scenes of this battle was a crucial secret. American codebreakers had managed to decipher Japan's communication codes, thanks to the efforts of an elite team at Pearl Harbor. This intelligence provided the U.S. with a massive advantage. Allowing Admiral Chester W. Nimitz and his commanders to anticipate the Japanese fleet's movements, the Americans now knew exactly where and when the Japanese fleet would strike. This was the turning point. The element of surprise was in their favor. Nimitz, along with Admirals Spruance and Fletcher, had the perfect opportunity to counterattack. But the stakes couldn't have been higher. They needed to win, not just for the survival of Midway, but for the entire Pacific War effort. On the Japanese side, the plan was clear. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the mastermind behind the attack on Pearl Harbor, knew that seizing Midway would cripple the U.S. Navy and solidify Japanese dominance in the Pacific. However, Yamamoto and his fleet were overconfident. They believed that the Americans would be caught off guard, unaware of their intentions, but the Japanese were underestimating the American resolve and the power of intelligence. Midway, a seemingly insignificant patch of land, would become the setting for an epic showdown, one that would forever alter the balance of power in the Pacific. On June 4, 1942, the battle began. The Japanese launched a full-scale attack on Midway, aiming to wipe out the American defenses. But what they didn't know was that the U.S. Navy was already waiting for them. As Japanese bombers and fighters approached, the U.S. aircraft carriers USS Enterprise, USS Hornet, and USS Yorktown were stationed just out of sight, ready to strike. That morning, the Japanese launched wave after wave of bombers, confident that their attack would be devastating. But the U.S. Navy's fighter pilots, flying Wildcats, were ready to intercept. The skies above Midway turned into a battleground, fighters, bombers, and torpedo planes weaving through the smoke-filled air. In the chaos of aerial combat, American pilots began to chip away at the Japanese forces. The first major blow came when U.S. bombers from the Enterprise and Yorktown managed to launch a surprise attack on the Japanese carriers, hitting the Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu, three of the most powerful carriers in the fleet. The impact was devastating. By the end of the day, the tide had turned in favor of the U.S. Navy. The Japanese had lost 4 aircraft carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, while the U.S. only lost 1, the USS Yorktown. The loss of these carriers, which were the heart of the Japanese fleet, would prove to be catastrophic. Yamamoto's dream of victory in the Pacific was shattered. The Battle of Midway was a decisive victory for the United States, and it changed the course of the war in the Pacific. It wasn't just a military win, it was a strategic blow that would cripple Japan's ability to project power across the Pacific. But the victory came at a high cost, and the battle was far from easy. After the battle, both the U.S. and Japan had suffered significant losses, but the Americans had struck a fatal blow to Japan's naval capabilities. The battle shifted the balance of power, and from that moment, the U.S. would be on the offensive, pushing the Japanese back across the Pacific. The Battle of Midway was the turning point in the Pacific theater. With Japan's best pilots and aircraft carriers destroyed, the US Navy now held the upper hand. Over the next 3 years, the Allies would continue to roll back Japanese advances, eventually leading to the end of the war in 1945. Today, the Battle of Midway is remembered not only for its military significance but for the courage, determination, and sheer willpower of those involved. The American pilots who risked everything, the codebreakers who turned the tide of war, and the naval commanders who led their fleets into the fray all played a role in shaping the future of the world. The Battle of Midway stands as a testament to the strength of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. It was a battle where intelligence, strategy, and courage came together to change the course of history forever. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed learning about the Battle of Midway and its monumental impact, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Which part of the battle stood out the most to you? Let me know in the comments below. Stay tuned for more epic tales from history, and I'll see you in the next video.